Yes, that's it's 10:03, and we have the quorum. Let's start the meeting. Um, if I could have secretary to call the roll.
All right, just a second here. All right. Good morning, everyone. Tien Fang,
Here.
Nilsa Serrano,
Here.
Robert Pearman here, Brett Gladstone,
Here.
Ronald Jones,
Present.
Mitra Kanani, Mitra, Sylvia Kwan,
Sylvia and Mitra are on mute.
oh, that was Ebony, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Sunny Ward, Sunny Ward. Let me try Mitra again. Speaker.
I'm present. Sorry, I was mute.
Sylvia Kwan.
Present.
Okay. Sunny Ward. Okay, we have a quorum. Yes.
Sorry, Sunny is ill. He was going to let me know if he could join the meeting, but I haven't heard from him. So.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Sunny is absent.
At right now, yes. He's ill.
Okay. Okay. So we have the quorum, and some procedure remark from the president. And first of all, we want to welcome Andy Bowden and John Rusinski from our LATC joining us. And again, as we repeated at every meeting, all motions need to be seconded, and for the record, for any voting, and the vote for all motions must be taken by roll calls. And at this time, before we start the meeting, any public comment for the items not on agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I will go ahead and open up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. You also have the option of raising your hand, and we will give you a moment. All right, I see no request for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please moderate.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, we are now at agenda item C, update from Department of Consumer Affairs. Today we have Brianna Miller to present the update to us. Brianna, please take over if you're there.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Apologies. I turned on my video, but I couldn't find myself, so I was searching frantically to make sure I was showing. So, good morning. I'm Brianna Miller with Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to provide a department update to your board today. To begin my update, I'd like to first discuss COVID-19 safety measures and telework. DCA appreciates all board members and staff who have continued to serve through a pandemic that has affected all of us in many ways. We are working together to find the right balance of staying connected and productive while keeping safe and healthy. DCA and its boards and bureaus continue to look to the future and use lessons learned to identify long-term efficiencies and policy changes. Staff are working in the office to provide the most effective consumer protection and public service while also utilizing telework where appropriate. Next, I'll discuss testing and vaccination verification. To combat the spread of COVID-19 and protect vulnerable communities, California has implemented enhanced safety measures for state employees and workers in healthcare settings. State employees must show proof of vaccination or be subject to regular COVID-19 testing. DCA's testing program kicked off in early October with the launch of the DCA Headquarters 1 pilot site. Select programs are designated to test at Headquarters 1, and the list of programs recently expanded due to the capabilities of the site. Board and committee members must follow health and safety protocols if they plan to visit a DCA location or attend an in-person meeting. Members must verify vaccination or follow testing protocols. Please communicate any plans for in-person meetings as soon as possible so that DCA can assist with coordination of teleconference options for the public, vaccination verification, and COVID-19 testing. Next, I'll discuss remote meetings. DCA recognizes the difficulty of planning for future meetings as the pandemic continues to evolve. As the law stands today, remote meetings are allowed until January 31, 2022, after which time meetings will need to be in person in accordance with all aspects of the Open Meetings Act. We don't know what additional changes to the law may be coming, but I think we all recognize there are benefits to remote meeting options, such as increased public participation, cost savings, and a lower carbon footprint from reduced travel. DCA encourages boards to continue utilizing remote options for public participation whenever possible. And as your board utilized this capability for your strategic planning a couple months ago, DCA can provide support for hybrid meetings at our HQ2 location. We will keep you updated on additional changes to meeting requirements or technical capabilities for meeting formats. Moving on to a note about appointments and recruitment. Whether meeting remote or in person, DCA wants to help keep your board fully seated with excellent members and diverse voices. As of today, the board has one vacancy, a public member appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly. DCA's communications team has been working on new communications toolkit to assist boards with member recruitment, which will be available in multiple languages before the end of the year. In the meantime, I encourage individuals who are interested in serving on the board to visit the Board Member Resources Center located on DCA's homepage, dca.ca.gov, to apply for an appointment. And finally, I'd like to provide you with a reminder about required board member trainings. And that reminder is 2021 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year, meaning all employees and board members are required to complete the training during this year, which, as we know, is rapidly approaching its end. You can access this training through the Learning Management System, or LMS for short, which is DCA's training portal. You can also register for the Board Member Orientation, or BMOT, in the LMS, and we're happy to report that 2022 dates are now available, and those virtual trainings will be held in March, June, and October. Those dates can be searched for in LMS and on the website, on the DCA website. And BMOT is required training for newly and appointed members, but we also encourage it to any member who seeks a refresher. Board and Bureau Relations is happy to assist you with any questions or concerns you have about these trainings or the use of LMS. And that concludes my presentation. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help, and if there's anything we can do to assist your board, please do not hesitate to reach out. So with that, I'll hand it back over to President Fang. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brianna. Welcome back to present to us. You could stay with us a little bit, see if we have comments from our members. After that, I would like open to public comment period as well. So any members have any questions for Brianna?
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay. Brianna, I understand I don't understand why, but I do understand the policy that any hybrid meetings has to be done at headquarters. But isn't the point of these WebEx and other applications, isn't the point that it allows more freedom of movement, location, etc.? So I'm just curious as to whether you know why the hybrid meetings can't be, let's say, initiated, monitored, however you want to say it, from anywhere.
So what I do know is it has to do with the technical capabilities and functionality at each DCA location. So right now, the HQ2 location is set up to be able to handle the ability to do WebEx and in person, as you all well know from your experience there. DCA is exploring, its other meeting locations and how we can set up this equipment, and it's something that they're actively working on to accommodate the boards and bureaus. It's just that at this time, DCA HQ2 is the location for it.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that they're working on it, because it seems to me that with the technology from these WebEx and other, meeting websites my experience anyway is that it's been able to be from anywhere. Because with the directive of having in-place meetings as of January. You mentioned the date. I know that our next board meeting will be in person in Northern California. And at this point, barring WebEx being able to do this, I'm imagining that it would then be in-person only, correct? Based on today's understanding of the technology.
Sure, and as we know, things are fluid and could change, and of course, DCA will let all its boards and bureaus know as soon as we do. And certainly our communications office, they're the ones that set up the webcast and helped support the hybrid functionality at HQ2.
Right.
So while maybe there's some functionality that I can't specifically speak to, I'm more than happy to help your board staff get the information it needs from our communications team.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other members has questions?
Hi, this is Brett Gladstone. So I just wanted to confirm that January meeting will be in person and board members will not be allowed to participate remotely. Please confirm.
So right now, the way that the law is written, I believe is AB 361. The current ability for us to hold meetings as we are right now extends until the end of January. So at that time, your board could do a hybrid meeting, barring, as what I just discussed with Member Kwan, the facilities permit it. After January 31st, as we stand today, that's when all aspects of the Open Meetings Act returns, and therefore we would anticipate fully in-person meetings.
Yeah, I didn't hear all of that. So,
apologies.
Could you explain that our next in-person meeting can be or will be in person only, and board members will not be able to participate by WebEx? Is that yes?
Let me jump in a little bit. Where we hold a meeting, how do we hold a meeting is the board's decision. And Brett, I just let you know if we will have this agenda items. If we do have concerns, we can still do full teleconference or that's my understanding. But if we are meeting in person, that the feature of hybrid will not be offered by DCA because of technical capability issues. So that perhaps is a better answer. Now I turn back to Brianna, see if we address Brett's concern.
Yes, so as you stated, because the ability to meet as we are right now extends to the end of January, it would be up to your board how you would want to meet up until that point in time. But yes, for a hybrid meeting, we would ask that you engage with Department of Consumer Affairs as soon as you're aware that that's how you would like to go, so that we can work with you to see if we have the facility availability and the date available, all those meeting logistics to support that request. I hope that answers your question.
I have not a question of suggestions. I suggest the board members to take another items on the agenda, and on this issue, we do need the full board's preference in terms of our next meeting format and the location. Okay.
Hi, Tiana, if I could just interject, this is Laura. So our next meeting is scheduled for February 25th. At this point, we're not going to have the option to do any kind of WebEx meeting. So it would either be a full in-person meeting like we've had before, or the more old-fashioned type of teleconference where we publicly notice the location the board member is calling in from, and it has to be listed on the agenda, it has to be open to the public, and a board member would have to allow a member of the public access to that location for the entire course of the meeting to listen to.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarification, Laura. Yeah. Okay. Okay, at this point, we can move to for public comment period. Moderator, I do like to combine this public comment period with the next one, which is any other comments from public to the agenda items for the whole meeting. So let's open up for public comment for both C and D of agenda items.
All right, so I have opened up the Q&A panel. We're taking comments on agenda items C and D. If you'd like to make a comment on these items, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm seeing no request for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay. Next on agenda is agenda E, item E, and election of board officers. This year we had a committee from a form of Ron Jones and Brett Gladstone. And Ron or Brett, you want to present your findings?
Sure. Ron, shall I?
Sure. Actually, no, Brett, why don't I do it because of the outcomes? I think it's probably more appropriate that I do it. Okay. First, I want to thank Chairman Tien for the assignment, and I also want to acknowledge and thank Brett for working with me as we pursued the outcomes of our recommendations that will be presented this morning. After discussions with members of the board and amongst ourselves, we are pleased to submit our recommendations to the board for your consideration. And if it's appropriate at this time, I'd like to announce those names, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please go ahead.
For the position of president, we would like to recommend Tien Fang. For the position of vice president, we'd like to recommend the name of Sonny Ward, Charles Sonny Ward, and for the position of secretary, Brett Gladstone, for your consideration.
Okay. Do you want to provide some findings during the process, and how do you? I'm not one putting on the spot, but how do you arrive at this nomination?
Great question.
Other board members.
Great question. Thank you for the opportunity. As you know, the first step that we take is to open the nominations to the entire body. So every member of the body has an opportunity to submit suggested names to the nominating committee. After that period had lapsed, both Brett and I took it upon ourselves to call each member of the board or email them to inquire about their thoughts about each particular member and any suggestions that they would want us to consider. We then sought the support of those members that we were considering to inquire about their interest. And then once we completed the vetting process, submitted our names to the executive officer in the way of Laura Zwenga.
So may I make a motion to...
Are we going to use the hand feature or should we not?
I don't see your hand. How do I see your hand?
She had it raised. Now it's down.
Oh, you're down now.
Go ahead, Sylvia.
Oh, no, I was just going to make a motion to follow the recommendations of the nominations committee.
Second.
Was seconded?
Yeah, you seconded. Laura, can you advise? Can I still say something?
Yeah, I think you can. Well, you can speak on the motion now at this point. Sorry, do you want to correct me if I'm missing anything?
Who seconded the motion, by the way?
Ilza.
Thank you.
I support the findings, and I commend that Sunny Ward willing to step in, and I appreciate all the work that both Ilza and Robert, and I understand that they had the situations, or they had the view of how and who should be the president, a vice president or so. And also they have a personal circumstance, may have a limitations to serve. But if it is not too late, and I still feel that if Ilza and Robert, your circumstance has changed or your view has changed, and it is prudent that for the board to understand your interest, and I live up to that. But if we are moving forward with this motion and a slate, I will do my best to continue to serve this role and do my very best to bring the next generation into place during this presidency.
Yeah, I think that's great that you're willing to stay on again, Chang, and bring some of your experience to the new team. Again, I wouldn't be able to participate at that level. So I'm glad that we have some talented volunteers, but again, your experience will help guide them. And hopefully next year, we'll get some ladies back into the leadership roster.
This is Brett. I'd like to thank everyone for nominating me. It's an honor, and I want to thank Nilsa and Ron for their and Jen for their service.
Okay.
So
Any other member has a comment on the motion?
Okay, call the question.
This is Tara Welch, counsel to the board. Can we get Mr. Ward's acceptance of this nomination?
Oh, you're right. Laura, how do we do that?
Sunny's present.
Hi, Tien. It's Sunny. I've logged in. I'm very sick, but I'm glad to be here. So it's good to see you guys. I'm sorry I'm such a bummer today. But thank you. Thank you for the nomination. I really appreciate it, and I hope I make you all proud.
Oh, I hope you get better.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Fast. Okay.
Hey, Tara, are we okay
Is that
now?
satisfactory? Is that okay, Tara, now?
We just need public comment as well.
Sure.
Oh, that's right. So if no members have any comments or remarks, I'd like to open the comment period for public on this motion.
All right, this is the moderator, and I have opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Great.
And Sylvia, as I understand your motion, you're moving the entire slate at once, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Okay, I'm ready to take the roll. on this item? Mr. Fang?
I, in particular,
Ms. Serrano?
support Sunny Ward as vice
Aye.
president and Brett Gladstone as secretary.
Right, that's the motion. Ms. Serrano?
Aye.
Mr. Pearman, aye. Mr. Gladstone?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Kanami?
Aye.
Ms. Kwan?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
And Mr. Ward?
Aye.
All right. Congratulations to our new board.
Thank you for the good work, and thanks all board members to elect the new leadership and representing the whole leadership. I want to say we will do our very, very best, and we want forward with some of the key agendas that we set in our strategic plan. And also we want the board to take more rigorous roles in measuring these successes and put the pressure on leadership. That said, like move to the next agenda. Agenda F, which is discussion of a possibility that nominating this year's, a little late, but nominating this year's Octavia Morgan's Distinguished Service Award. By talking to staff and executive directors and some members, feels appropriate to consider our very member who just left the board to be recognized for this award. So if you think it's necessary, I would like to read the citation that's drafted by the staff and seeking for comment. Laura, what do you think? Should I just go ahead and read the citation? Or?
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So the citation says that Pascal Gutierrez has been dedicated to serve the board for the past 15 years. He was first appointed to the board 2006 and served as president, vice president, and secretary. Gutierrez also served as professional qualification and executive committees as chair and vice chair. He has been instrumental in assisting the board to evolve. 3 major accomplishments driven by Gutierrez have been elimination of the comprehensive intern development program. After National Council of Architecture Registration Board incorporated evidence-based work sample requirements into this program. Adoption and implementation of the integrated path architecture licensure, nicknamed IPAO, by 3 prominent California School of Architecture, and 3, development of a framework revising mandatory continuing education for licensure. Its dedication to the California Architects Board, inspiring architects and professionals is exemplary and deserving accommodation. So any board has any other wording and suggestions, Laura and I really like to incorporate more, or you have different suggestions, ideas, let us know. Otherwise, we want to try to formalize this as soon as we can.
All I can say is that the award would be well deserved. I haven't seen anyone work so hard for so many years for this board, and the number of volunteer hours he put in and the information he shared with us. So I fully support this nomination.
Anyone have any comment?
Yeah, I agree. Having served Pasquale, he's been tremendous, and he volunteers beyond hours, just the board activities with the architectural community in the public in general, and is a fitting recipient.
I would like to confirm, endorse everything that my colleagues mentioned. Although I'm new to the board, but I have known Pasquale for many years as the face of the board, and a great face for the board. And I personally have to say that without him, IPAL was not possible in California. He was one of the major supporters, and I know for the fact, because I was the one that was pushing this program in the entire state, and without him, this initiative would have not become into fruition. And I really appreciate everything that he has done throughout the years. Thank you, Pasquale.
Tian, it's Laura. Nielsa has her hand up.
Do we need a motion for this agenda item?
We do need a motion, and it would be to award Pascal Gutierrez the Octavius Morgan Award, and to use board member personal funds to pay for the cost of the award. That's because we can't use state funds to pay for it.
I'd like to make a motion to accept this recommendation.
I second the motion.
My only comment is, Laura, will you let us know where we need to send the checks?
I will. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you for your input. We now open to public comment on this agenda item. Agenda item F.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to make a comment on agenda item F, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment.
Moderate, since the comment is a typing, right? Or they are. I script my comments. Wait.
All right. I'm not seeing any raised hands or requests for comment at this time. So, Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Moderate, how can I change my settings so I can see members? Hands? It's very important feature.
Yes. So if you click on, it looks like a person next to 3 lines at the bottom lower right of your screen. That'll open up the panelist list. And then when people raise their hand, you'll see they'll go to the top of the list and there'll be a raised hand next to their name.
I have my right-hand side column as all the members listed, and the bubbles with their icon abbreviation of their name, but I don't see their hand. And I'm so sorry. Can someone try? I can see, for example.
I just raised my hand. Yep, and Nielsa did.
Yeah. Laura, I can see you because I have your picture on the screen, which with a hand, but not on my right-hand side column. It's listed all members.
10 at the bottom of the page, there is a little icon that says participants with a shadow of kind of a head and a body. It says participants. If you click that, all of the names will come out on the right side of your screen.
It has. It is fully listed on my right-hand side.
I'm going to raise my hand. Do you see me on your? When I raise my hand, I should move up to the top of the list. Hold on. Okay, my hand is raised.
No, I do not see your hand.
It's next to my name.
A little small thing next to her name. It should be near the top of your list with the participant panelists.
Not on the top of not where my photo is, but on the right-hand side of the panel where all the names are.
Now I learned. Let me ask moderator, there's when you raise your hand, your photo pop up on my top bar. I see a little hand icon. Is that reliable, moderator? Each member raise their hand, they will automatically pop up to my their picture on my top.
Yes, you can rely on that. So anytime someone raises their hand on the panelist list on the right-hand side of your screen, they move up to the top of the list, and also the hand shows in their video picture as well. But you should be able to see it in the list of participants on the right-hand side of your screen, and it's a vertical list.
I do see Ken. And I'm so sorry to drag the whole group. Can I ask another person? I see Laura. Laura, could you? Yeah, now I see your hand, Laura. Laura and Ron Jones. Yes, have you raised your hand?
Yes, sir.
Those are the only two I see.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now I see in the middle. No one. Okay. All right. I'm so sorry for consume the time on the meeting. I now hope.
All right, we're ready to take the vote on the Octavius Morgan Award. I believe so. I'll call the roll. And all in favor of Mr. Fang?
Yes.
Ms. Serrano?
Yes.
Mr. Pearman, aye. Mr. Gladstone?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Kanani?
Yes.
Ms. Kwan?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Unanimous, sir.
Okay. Motion passes. We'll move to the next agenda item. Agenda item G, review and a possible action on September 10th, 2020 board meeting minute, last meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that the minutes be accepted.
Nilsa Serrano, second.
Okay. I'll move and Yotza seconded. Any questions or comments or corrections? Will we will ask public? Okay, I hear now. Moderator can open the public comment period for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make comments on the meeting minutes, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please, moderator.
Oh, okay, it's closed.
Okay.
All right. I will call the roll to approve the September meeting minutes. Mr. Fang?
Aye.
Ms. Serrano?
Aye. Sorry.
Mr. Pearman, aye. Mr. Gladstone?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Kanani?
Aye.
Ms. Kwan?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
Unanimous, sir.
Okay, motion approved. We can move to the next agenda. I hope the board have sometimes look over the steps.
John, this is Laura. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was wondering if we could perhaps consider taking it out of order and taking up the executive officer's report before this. Our budget analyst, Harmony, is going to present under this item, and she's in the meeting now. So I thought it would be nice if we could let her go, and then we the strategic plan might take some time.
Tara, if you have no objection, I want to move agenda item J now and shift agenda item H later.
This is Tara Welch. I have no objections.
Okay. We are now on the agenda item J. No, not J.
I. Yeah.
I. Sorry, I.
So,
take over, Laura, please.
Thank you. So I can either present the report now, or why don't we go straight to the budget portion? And Harmony's going to present. And I sent out the fund condition to the members as an attachment. So Harmony, if you're ready, do you want to present this to the board members?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Harmony DiFilippo. I am the budget analyst with DCA, and I'm going to walk through the fund condition with you guys today. Laura, is it included in here so that I can see it on the screen as well?
It wasn't in the packet. I'm not sure if we can display it.
If you give me the authority, if the moderator give me authority, I have this open. I can display.
Okay, we actually have it loaded. If the co-moderator can go to the drop-down menu in the middle of the screen and select it, I believe it's, yes, thank you so much. And Harmony, feel free to tell us what pages to go to throughout.
Perfect, thank you so much. So today we're looking at the fund condition statement, and this here gives you a 4-year view. So this includes your prior year actuals for 2021, current year, budget year, and budget year +1. So I'm going to speak to current year first. So our current year showing down here in the middle is your revenue. And this is based off of the Budget Act with the projected revenue, about $3.8 million. And then here you can also see below the total resources of 8.3. I'm going to briefly speak to this page before we move down to the next page to discuss expenditures. So in budget year and budget year +1, you also see that these revenue projections are based on previous years with that high-low trend. So you can see that they are similar. And then now, if you could please turn the page, we're going to go down to the expenditures. So for current year here, we are looking at the 1111 expenditures, and this is based off of FM3 data. So right now, we are looking at total expenditures at about 4.9, with a fund balance of 3.4 million, which gives us a 7.7 months in reserve. And to just briefly speak to the months in reserve, what that means is that if the board did not have any revenue coming in, that the board would be able to sustain for approximately 7.5 months. So the budget year and budget year +1 here for the expenditures, those are assumed realized. And if they expend to full appropriation, the board would show a negative reserve balance at the end of 23-24. However, it is important to point out that the board has historically a reversion of approximately $450,000, and that's based on the last 4 fiscal years. We are projecting the board to revert about $400,000. However, this could change as we are still in the first half of the fiscal year. If the board maintains a reversion of around $200,000 to $300,000, the board will be solvent through 23-24. We will continue to monitor the budget and provide monthly updates to Laura. Do I have any questions that anybody has regarding the fund condition or the expenditures?
I have a question. Let's see. So I see that the months in reserve get down to a negative number, 23, 24. Did you explain why that is? And also the second part of the question is, what is our normal number of months in reserve that the board likes to keep? So it seems a little bit, I'm wondering why 23, 24 is, is reduced to that amount.
Okay. Hi, Sylvia. This is Karen Munoz. I'm the budget manager.
Yes.
And I'll address some of the questions that you have regarding this. Okay. So when the months in reserves decline, it just shows that there is a trend of more expenses going out and less revenue coming in. And so that declines the fund in the months in reserve. So it does show a trend that the revenue coming in is less than the expenditures going out. As you can see in this page that's being shown, that the expenditures were at 3.9 million in prior year, and we're at 4.5 in current year. It does, budget year and budget year plus one does not show any reversions. That is what the budget is slotted to be for budget year and budget year plus one. However, a couple things to know: we do annual adjustments to the budget. That could be an increase or a decrease in the budget. We don't know that information in future years, but that can and will change most likely. But it also doesn't show any reversions that the board has. And historically, like Harmony pointed out, based on a 4-year average, there was about approximately $450,000 a year reversion that the board is able to sustain. Currently, we are showing a $400,000 reversion in our current year projections. And assuming based on historical trends, the board will have a reversion every fiscal year. But we do understand if the revenues sustain where they are at now at my screen at 3.8, 3.4 million in the low years and 3.8 in the high years without any changes, and with the expenditures continually in the mid 400s to 500 or mid 4 millions to $5 million, then yes, the fund will maintain this downward trend. So that is something the budget office does work with the board on a consistent basis. When we meet with Laura monthly on her budget and where they're at, and we also have some other subject matter experts in our office that does work with Laura to discuss options and recommendations.
So, I mean, does this naturally lead to a potential rise in the renewal fees, and also just just the cost of becoming an architect? I mean, is that what this is leading to, or am I reading this wrong?
This is Laura. So, I mean, you read it correctly, Sylvia. At some point, we will need to look at raising the space. The place that we can raise fees through regulation is through the renewal fee. It's currently set in regulation at $300. Mm-hmm. The statutory cap is $400. So that would be what we would need to do when it gets critical. And we're going to try to be as conservative as possible with our spending. As the budget office said, we do typically have a reversion. Part of the reason our costs are increasing a bit over the next few years, though, are the costs for business modernization. So that takes certainly a chunk out of our budget, but we'll continue to be conservative in our spending. I'm going to continue to hold our assistant executive officer position vacant a little bit longer, just to get a better idea of what the budget picture is like, as to have that salary savings. And as I said, we'll continue to monitor this monthly, and so I can present at each board meeting, so board members have an update at each meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to clarify a little bit. This is the budgeting. This is good at trending in terms of budgeting, but if this is an expenditure, then it's a bad trending. So what that means, just information for other board members, they likely can allow some of the expenditures start coming in, like modernize our business practice. Remember, we talk about digitize our paper files. And with that with this budget trending, we can start spending some money. So this is a good trending.
Sport Gladstone, may I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. the top line of numbers, I'm looking at prior year and current year under program expenditures, and it seems like the current year is 16 or 17% higher than the prior year on that line. And yet in the notes section, expenditure growth is projected at 3%. That's beginning, a year or two from now. But I don't have, we don't see columns for the year prior to the prior year and the year prior to that. And I'm wondering if 16% has been the trend for the year before the prior year and the year before that. Because it seems we hit 16 or 17% from last year to this year, increase in program expenditures.
I can address a little bit to that. Like Laura had mentioned, there is a their BizMod effort does increase their expenditures in the current year and in budget year from previous years. So that does increase their expenditures at this time. We do have prior year information, the prior year, as you were saying. We do have all that information, but those are just actuals. They're presented in all the boards when we get our actuals. If that's something you wanted to look at, we can provide that to Laura. But we do have all that historical data for you. But for when we're addressing current year and budget year, those do include the BizMod efforts, like she had said, for the expenditure line item. There is also the 3% growth that we identify in the note sections for future years. Those include annual adjustments that we would see in our expenditures, which include general salary increases that come through, employee comp and retirement rate changes. So for us to be able to provide some form of an accurate or a projection in future years, we include a 3% growth in expenditures to capture some of those annual adjustments that we see.
I saw it's a hand with one's raised. Yoda, do you have a question? Any other comments for our budget staff?
This is Nilsa. Do we need a motion for this item?
We do not. It's just informational. But we should open for public comment if there are no other comments from board members.
Yeah.
Just one question. Did I hear you say that COVID helped explain the 17% increase?
It's not the COVID cost, it's the cost for business modernization.
So modernization.
Yeah.
So Laura, we have on the agenda I, we have 2 items. Next item, the business modernization. Have anything particular to say?
I was just going to cover that under the total report. Do you want me to complete, or if we're done with the budget information, I can just go to the rest of the report and then we can do public comment at the end?
If Tara has no objection, I like to move the second item off the item J2 back to item H. Oh no, item complicated.
This is Tara Welch. I think it's cleaner for the record if you stop and take public comment on each agenda item. Thank you.
Okay. Can you do business modernization now, Laura?
I think Tara's suggesting we should open for public comment for the budget item.
Oh, not to do the business modernization?
This is Tara. That's correct. Take public comment now on the budget and then move to business modernization.
Okay, good. Moderator, please open the public comment period for the item of a budget update.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen or raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we do have Mark Christian wanting to make a comment. Just a reminder, we'll have a 2-minute time limit. And Mark, you should be able to unmute yourself now. There you go, you're unmuted.
Mark Christian with the American Institute of Architects, California. We, of course, support the role of the California Architects Board. Thus, we support the ability of the Architects Board to function fully funded. As the Executive Director Zuniga mentioned earlier, the statutory cap currently is at $400, the cap for the fee. It was moved from 200 to 400 in 2009 with a AB 1145. That was legislation jointly sponsored by the California Architects Board and AI California. And upon enactment of that, we worked with the California Architects Board to support increasing the fee to $300. So we are not opposed to adjusting the fee to allow the California Architects Board to function at its appropriate level. And we look forward to working with the California Architects Board and its staff should a future fee increase be needed. And we certainly support the efforts, if I understand it correctly, from the Executive Director to look at the cost side of the equation as well. So please know that AI California will be an active participant, a supportive participant to adjust fees in the future if that is indeed necessary. Thank you.
All right, and we have no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the question and answer panel?
Yes, please, the moderator.
Okay, it's closed.
Hey, Laura, how do we do? What's the next item?
Thank you. So I can go on to the second item. I'm just, it's in the Executive Officer's report, so it's in under tab I. So I'll cover business modernization under that, but I can start with that. So we are in stage 4 of the business modernization process. We're in a group with 4 other programs from DCA. So we've selected, a new software has been identified for our new system, which is in Lumon, and we're released a solicitation in mid-November to identify a vendor to integrate to the new system. So the total projected costs for the board for this project are approximately $1.4 million split over the next several fiscal years. So that is certainly, pressure on our fund and part of the reason for the increasing costs. But if there aren't any questions specific to business modernization, I'll go on to the rest of the items.
Sorry, Laura, I didn't hear who you said the vendor is.
Oh, the software we're going to use is called InLumon, and there was another group of boards before us, including Board for Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, and that's who they selected. And so they're ahead of us, and so I think we will realize some efficiencies and potentially some cost savings from the fact that they're already going to be working with some other DCA programs.
Right.
So
okay, thank you.
Very helpful, and looking forward to having a new system in place for everyone's benefit.
So Laura, I just want to make sure the board member feels comfortable that the modernization cost is thoroughly considered and it matches our current budget that we just presented for next 3 years.
Yeah, so the costs are now projected into our budget for business modernization. So that's part of the reason for the increase that Brett noted. Other costs go up as well, obviously, like personnel costs and our DCA pro rata, but that's a significant portion of it.
That's very good investment.
Looks like Mitra has her hand up.
Yes. I would like to know what is included in business modernization for the board. Sure. If you explain a little bit. Yeah.
So it is, it's going to help both, I think, from the staff and the public perspective. Internally, we use a fairly antiquated system for processing new applications and renewals and enforcement cases, which limits our ability to fully telework and be automated because we're really paper driven. And also we have very few services we offer online for the benefit of licensees. So you can't apply online. There's a limited ability to renew online, but you can't make modifications to your license record or anything like that. So with the new system in place, that is the expectation, is that people will be able to apply online for a license. They'll be able to renew completely online, modify perhaps their address or their phone number of record, fully move the CE audit online, and just really automate the process. And so that will help the licensees, and also will help staff in terms of everything will be online, and we won't have the paper-driven process, which limits our ability to telework, and also can just slow down a little bit. So that's the expectation. We're really hopeful that it'll lead to lots of improvements. So it's something that's been in the works for many years, and the Department of Consumer Affairs originally had envisioned a system that every board would be a part of. It's called Breeze, and it didn't end up working out for everyone. And so I do think it'll work to our benefit in that I think we'll have more automation and better service out of the new system than we might have been able to get just by having to wait a little bit longer as technology developed.
So does it include the supplemental exam, taking supplemental exam?
The administration of the exam itself is separate. So that is, DCA at this point is not looking at remote proctoring like NCARB is for the ARE. I don't know if they're going to look at that. Is that what you're asking about? I can check and see if that's a possibility.
I don't know exactly how the supplemental exam is happening these days, but that was my question. Is it taking exam online? Is it part of it?
No, candidates have to go in person to the test center, to PSI, to take their supplemental exam. So that unfortunately is not part of the process. That's separate because of the security of an exam and the administration.
It has been any thoughts for that to convert it?
I don't believe so. I had spoken with DCA maybe a few months ago when they learned that NCARB was going to remote proctoring. And so NCARB gave a presentation to us and to the DCA testing staff so they could be aware of kind of the security features of it, because obviously it's a concern to test administrators when an exam goes online like that. But I don't believe that DCA has any plans for that, but I'd be happy to look into it and report back.
Thank you.
Any other comments for Laura?
Okay, I'll just run through the rest of the report. So on the first page, we have the meetings. Communications Committee met in September. With the adoption of a new strategic plan, the president will appoint new committees that would take effect next year. So we can discuss that a little bit further later on under strategic planning. LATC met in August, and then they will soon start starting their strategic plan process. And so when we have the environmental scan for LATC, I'll send that to the board members so they can be aware. We went over the budget already. We've discontinued the regular reporting for COVID, but as Brianna mentioned under the DCA update, the state is requiring all employees to submit proof of vaccination or test. So the department runs a testing facility 1 day a week for staff. Moving on to personnel on page 2, our CSE analyst left us for a promotion at another board to the dental board, Ricky Parks. So we're recruiting to fill that position. I also want to mention, it's not in here, but we created a new staff position called it's in a manager specialist position at the board. So it's a limited term position for 12 months. And this person will handle all of the regulations for the board. At this point, the packages are split amongst the different staff and enforcement and licensing, and everyone's been doing a really good job, but they are fairly time consuming. And the process to adopt regulations is pretty long. It requires a lot of back and forth with our regulation legal counsel. So we created one position to centralize all the regulations with one person so that person can be fully dedicated to that. So Kimberly McDaniel, who was an administration analyst, is taking this position for us. So we just finalized that this week. So we're hoping that it leads to some kind of just a little bit of streamlining in the regulations, and we can get some of these completed, as we'll have some new ones coming up. And social media information, you have our statistics there. Colleen returned to us she was on contact tracing, so she's been able to spend more time on this and has been doing a really good job with some of our postings. And then I have under here the regulatory proposals, so you can go through and see which ones we have. One of our highest priorities right now is the retired license fee, so we're working on getting that to the finish line. It's with legal right now for an additional review. This has definitely required a lot of back and forth, but we're making progress. We have some interested licensees who are asking about this, so I will provide them updates as we go forward. And then we're also working on the regulations to both regulations required for our existing disability access CE, as well as we're starting on the regulations to implement AB 1010, which takes effect next year for the zero net carbon design continuing education requirement. That requirement is going to take effect prior to the regulations being adopted, but we're starting to work on this already, so we can hopefully have them in place.
Laura, quick question on that. So obviously with this new requirement for the net zero buildings, how does CAB work with outside vendors, or are they just on their own to try to develop learning programs for us?
I mean, they are sort of on their own. The board doesn't have the authority to approve them. So the regulations will sort of specify what we'd like to see in the content, but providers themselves will just have to develop it and offer it on their own.
If I can comment on that, this is Ron. We should be reminded that the AIA has agreed to provide continuing education on the subject matter. I'm not sure if there's a sunset date on those services, but they've committed to providing these courses without any additional cost to practitioners.
Oh, okay. And so that was the second part of my question, was whether there is an approval process required. No. Okay.
No.
Wow, that's so interesting, because you would think, you know how AIA, when you have continuing education requirements, they approve the I forget the term, but you know, they approve the
learning unit.
Right, exactly. And it has to be an AIA approved program before you can get your credits. So as we take these ADA exams, I noticed that there is a clause or a certification, if you will, with these various programs that are offered that says that it is approved for for your licensing renewal. So I was just curious how, what the process was like.
Yeah, Laura, you may want to clarify that. There's a confusion to myself too. These vendors on current 5 hours of ADA implies they are somewhat certified by somebody. I understand the CAB, our board, does not certify any of these and any providers, right?
We don't formally approve providers, right? I think perhaps I'd have to look at this further. From what I understand, potentially if perhaps if licensees have submitted coursework documentation, they've been through the audit process and it's been approved, perhaps that's somehow turned into some type of informal approval. But let me look into a little bit more and I will report back. I think the reason we don't have a formal approval process required in statute or regulation is really because of the workload that would impose on the board. So the board was able to, we're going to absorb the workload from the implementation of AB 1010, but if we'd had to approve providers, we wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have, it would require more staff and resources.
So work with AIA California in developing.
Yeah.
Interesting, developing that is very good.
Marcus, if you are able to, I think he has some additional comments he could add to this.
Yes, so we don't approve the courses or the providers, but we do have a list of providers that we've previously accepted, and those courses that they submitted at the time were acceptable. In the regulations, they will specify the content, and part of the requirements would be, an assessment, a score, and the type of content that takes up the majority of the regulation, which specifies the content more prescriptively. And so the providers would need to go ahead and arrange their courses that way. What I would add is that there are a number of those providers that are saying they're certified by the board, and we have spoken through our enforcement unit. We have asked them not to say that they are approved by the board, as we don't approve them. So just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that as well.
Well, I don't know. I just think that that's something that we might want to discuss at a future board meeting, maybe bring this subject up and let's kind of really work through it. Because what I see is cause and effect. Because of the fact that there's no budget for staff to do the actual certification, or for just, for us to do the certification, therefore, there are people out there just saying, we are used and I guess approved and whatnot. And then AIA, fortunately, is going to, do a quality program, I'm sure, for the net zero. But the ADA has been a little bit all over the place. Some are, I don't know if there have been free ones, but the costs have ranged, all over the place. I just think, Tian, that and Laura, that we might want to daylight that and really have a discussion at our next meeting.
It will be an ongoing discussion in terms of implementation. But we have a good partner. At the end of this items, we will open up to public comment. I'm sure our colleague from AIA will have some remarks helpful to us. But yes, in implementation, Laura and I, this is one of the standing items when we meet weekly. We need to constantly bring back to the board, make sure the full board feel comfortable how do we implement that. Thank you, Sophia, that's the plan.
Thank you.
And we can put it on the next board agenda and keep it as a standing item so we can talk about it a little bit further. That would be good. Okay, so let's see, moving on, we have the LATC regulations as well. And then on page 8, we have our exam statistics. So we start with the CSE exam. Pass rate for the most recent quarter was 67% amongst all candidates. And then the ARE, again, pretty typical, with the lowest pass rate in project management and programming analysis. And project planning and design, actually, I'm sorry, at the lowest. Any questions? Oh, Mitra has her hand up. I'm sorry, Mitra.
Well, no, it was for the previous item. I wanted to share. It's okay. So you put it on the agenda. I wanted to explain a little bit about my own personal experience of this year, particularly related to the CEU. And so if we have it on the agenda for next time, I'll reserve it for that time. That's okay.
Okay, sure. And so then on page 9, we have the LATC statistics for both their licensing exam, which is not offered continuously like the ARE, but this was for the most recent administration in August, and then their CSE rate as well. Moving on to page 10, information on our enforcement statistics. So as we talked about in strategic planning, I'll enhance this starting for the next board meeting. We didn't make any changes for this just due to timing, but going forward, we'll present a little bit more information on the types of cases we're reviewing. But here you can see the types of complaints we got, comparing it to the prior year, as well as the most common violations, which stay pretty much the same: unlicensed practice, professional misconduct, negligence, and contract violations. A lot of the times we'll see that there is a written contract that just doesn't have all the required elements, which can at times lead to part of the problem in the particular case that we see. And then we have the same information for LATC for their complaints. And at the bottom of page 11, the enforcement action that became final, a 2-count citation against an individual, and it'll describe the action there. We also post these are included in our newsletter and posted online. So that's all I have for this report. Are there any questions?
Laura, I have one question, and I want to take the opportunity to get some conversation with the full board. My question is simple. How do you distribute, how staff distribute the board's newsletter? The reason I ask is I never received one. Last newsletter, I got a couple of them response from AIA members and a couple of them from our own board member. How do you send out newsletters? People have to subscribe it, or you send it?
Yeah, we have a listserv for subscribers, which you're apparently not a part of. So we'll subscribe you. We'll make sure all the board members are receiving it. So I can also make sure when it goes out to send an individual email to you all to make sure you have it. And we post it online as well, but we don't mail hard copies anymore. And I think we post a link on social media to the sites that we can.
So whoever has been receiving it because they sign up?
Right.
Oh, how do you know, like people like me did not know that I need to sign up? If the people at large not already subscribed, how do they know they need to sign up?
I don't recall how we created the list because that was before my time, and I think there's an option when you go to our website to sign up. But we could see if there's other ways we can promote that to make sure we have the greatest audience possible.
Yeah, and the reason is if I got multiple, like 4 total responses of last newsletter, that must mean someone's reading it. Otherwise, they would not bother forwarding them. Yeah, so.
Yeah,
I
and
think
we
it's
get
good
a summary of
things.
the comments coming back to the staff. And people definitely read it because we got comments on the new CE requirement.
Okay.
A lot of happy people, but we got comments, so people were reading it.
Okay. So try to maximize the distribution of it.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Any other members has comments for Laura? And before I bring expanded the issue, one of the topics that Laura presented is committee. Any other members? Okay, I see now. I want to take this opportunity to talk about our committee assignment, committee format, and the committee members' choice. I think over the years, has a lot of freedoms and dynamics. I think we need some structures. For example, how large the member should be. Who should be the member? What are the typical qualifications? And how long the member should serve? So again, this is one of the agenda items between Laura and me, our weekly meeting. At this moment, I like to present the idea of how do we envision to structure our committees in a more regular and manageable and consistent fashion. And then we don't need action. We want to hear feedback because as Laura said, this year we want to do something different. We want name and form the committee before the end of the year and start next year. We work on agenda right away instead of waiting for first 3 months. So we will do that. Your input will be very helpful. So at the moment, our thoughts is we keep all 3 committees consistent in the following way. 1, they all consist of 5 members, not more, not less. And among 5 members, 3 members are active board members, currently serve on the board. 1 members are former board members who are interested in continue to involve and bring a historical perspective into the discussion. And 1 is a public. I think California Architects Board is strong in this diversity of bringing in public member, public voice. And we will use this as a template applied to all 3 committees: professional qualification, communication, regulations, and enforcement. So that's consistency number 1. Consistency number 2 is we want also to have meeting frequency be consistent. Anywhere from 2 meetings. I heard from all committees. We believe 1 meeting is just too little to be productive. Okay. I also heard 4 meetings might be too many if we don't have very structured issues to deal with. So we're looking for input. The moment we think 2 would be minimal, 4 would be maximum. Okay. And then in terms of the length of service, and we thought one of the logic alignment is our strategic plan works in 3 years of cycle. And how about the committee in line with that 3 years cycle? In other words, after 3 years, we want to bring in different members, different voice, different perspective. So this is the current ideas, and any board members and any suggestions like this direction, or you have different opinions?
Hi, Dan.
If I could just interject, I think I was pointing out this isn't really it doesn't fit as much under this agenda item. I'm hoping maybe we can cover it, and maybe we can move back to the strategic plan, as this came up as part of the strategic plan discussion and implementation. Tara, would that be a better fit for this item?
Yes, because I think that right now we're all a bit confused as to how this relates specifically to your officer's report. So yeah, if we could delay additional discussion of this until the strat plan discussion, that would be better suited for the agenda.
Okay, thanks. So if we can just hold the responses to Tion's comments to that.
Okay, I will be happy to repeat if necessary during the agenda of strategic plan. We discuss this again. All right, we did not find a better alignment. Okay, any other comments for Laura before we turn to public comment on the executive report? I see now. Moderator, can we open?
All right, this is the moderator, and the Q&A panel is now available. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may raise your hand. We are displaying instructions. And again, these are comments on the executive officer's report. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, now we are going back to agenda item H. Laura will present 2022-2025 strategic plan. And this requires action to adopt the plan so we can start implementing next year, beginning of next year.
Okay, thank you. So this was something that was distributed to the members. We might have it loaded as well, but I'll just run through it briefly. I do note, thank you, and sorry to Robert, we have a correction on page 2 to Robert's name, and we'll list him as the secretary under the membership. But then really starting on page, bear with me, on 9 is our first goal area under professional qualifications. And I should note that we have the dates on here as 2022 through 2025. I think the board's preference though was for a 3-year strategic plan. So this would run from 2022 through the end of 2024, if that's what the board would like to do. So we have the first goal areas for professional qualifications. We have 4 goals here. I don't know if any members have any questions on these. I think they're all fairly straightforward.
Can we just scroll through?
Yeah, is it possible to present them on the screen?
This is the moderator. Yes, if you let our co-moderator know what page to jump to.
Page 9, please. Oh, maybe not.
I think the
one more.
Yes, one more.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so this is a first goal area. We talked about, we have the regulations to implement AB 1010, additional regulations in goal 1.1, the types of degrees that we accept for licensure, of the additional regulations. And then item 1.3 covers a topic we've discussed previously about the board's interest in including climate resiliency under the CSE materials and communicating to the public about the work the Professional Qualifications Committee did on the topic of continuing education. Any members have any questions or comments?
Can you scroll it down, please?
That's the last one in this area.
I'm saying 1 up to 1.3.
I see 1 through 1.4.
I don't see that part.
Are you able to scroll down on your own screen?
Yeah, can you scroll your... See, there is a place to scroll for you as well on the right.
Yeah, I don't want to tamper with Laura. I don't want to intervene.
Try to scroll on your own screen to see if you can get them to appear.
Mirta, on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a little 4 arrows to the left, and that will give you the option of making the document smaller or bigger. See where there's kind of on the shadows on the left-hand side of your screen.
Yeah.
And at the bottom icon, it's 4 little stars that are facing different ways. Wait, so there's like way at the bottom, and then there's a zoom and minus eyeglass, and right below it.
I don't have that. Okay. What you described.
Are you on what type of computer are you on? A PC or Mac?
Yes, PC.
Okay.
So
you can't see them really bright. It kind of looks a little bit like a watermark.
Oh.
If you aren't able to see it on your screen, Mitra, you might want to follow along with the handout that I sent you.
Yeah, sure.
This is Bob Perry. My only comment on the points is like 1.4, communicate to the public. That brings to mind, we had a discussion about the communication committee being maybe overburdened. So it seems appropriate. This is an example where they don't have to be the sole committee that deals with the public and outreach and promotion, so to speak. The other committees can take a step and sometimes do their own thing with maybe some input from communications as appropriate. But this is where we can help relieve the burden on them too by doing these types of things sort of on our own.
Good comment. I urge the members to look at it and give your comment. I think we have opportunity. Kara always taught us that going back, staff make some of language, non-substantive change. Will not deviate and your comment, so we can vote to adopt this today, and we can move on. So feel free to comment. We can still vote on it.
Are there any additional comments on this area? Okay, so if we can go on to the next page, this is regulation and enforcement. So we have 6 goals here. The first one, as I mentioned in my report, will provide more detail under the executive officer report during board meetings in interim reports on enforcement cases, and also look to provide more information online, potentially about, to inform the public a little bit more about how we handle them. So I think is what the board is looking for on that item. That kind of ties into the second one, discuss narrative discussions and case studies of common violations. Third one, better educate practitioners on standard of practice during the renewal process. So we talked about providing additional information in the renewal. Educating the public and practitioners regarding their role when contracts are signed with a third party. This we would probably do as an informational bulletin and through the newsletter. Number 5 is to review the current threshold for fines to determine if they're appropriate to deter violations, and then monitor social media to proactively enforce against unlicensed advertising. Any questions or comments on this area?
Yes, I'm trying to understand a little better what in this at 2.4 exactly what third party means. So
I think it was talking about when like maybe a new home developer is building a subdivision, right? And so the contract isn't between the homeowner.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a better way to say that. I mean, I know this, and I know we discussed it, so is there a way to say it more clearly?
There probably is, and maybe it's when the consumer isn't,
You know, like
we could revise this a little bit if we can build that into the motion.
I mean,
suggested.
Sure. I'm thinking of a word like an additional party, you know, something like that, so they know. See, third party is a little confusing, I think, as a term. So anyway, yeah, sure. Let's see if we can make it clear.
So yeah, this is the typical things I mentioned. We can correct them if we're not even in the motion, but then as long as we understand the commenter's intent, like your intent, and the staff level fix it. But this one reflects to the over the years, we just felt, particularly the professional qualification committee and the regulatory committee, think many violations seems a lack of education, lack of understanding. If we approach to the parties, the consumer side is homeowner, practitioner side is architect, better understanding the practice requirement, and these complaints will be minimized. So that is this intent. Maybe we are getting too specific here. We'll maybe provide better educational materials or make educational materials available to consumers and architects regarding their roles in the contract.
And for the public, it's really not so much their role as what their rights are.
Right,
not the signer to the contract.
In the contract documents. So, and I remember one incident that Sunny, I asked help. I said, I don't even know currently you require when you sign agreement to license number there, and because I've not signed agreement for many years. And Sunny says, yes. See, I don't even know that when you sign a written agreement, architecture license number need to be included. So that's the education is needed. Even for the president of our California Architects Board. So better education, better information available to consumers and the practitioners.
This is Tara Welch, Bird Council. I do think you need to kind of clarify this one a little bit more because I'm hearing educating right. I'm hearing educating on contract requirements. And then I'm hearing educating on other parties' responsibilities. So I think those are 3 very broad topics for something that probably could be reduced to something much smaller. It seems like at some point, the public, a notice went out online after some recent legislation was signed for additional contract requirements. It's possible that you could just, pull a pamphlet together and post something online, which just, details all the contract requirements. So that's your public education about what the contract requires. And in that case, perhaps the public can actually understand what the contractor is required to do, at least their role. I don't know. I think I would argue against starting to include third-party roles, because the board only regulates architects and architect contracts. So if there's third parties, I think you potentially start to walk down an ambiguous path with respect to other licensees. So if it's possible, maybe you could just educate the public and practitioners regarding contract requirements. Is that sufficient? Does that nail this down a bit more?
If I could interject, and I think this is Ron Jones. I think the objective from our perspective would be to ensure that both the consumer and the practitioner understands both the roles of the design professional and the expectations of the consumer when, for example, an architect signs a contract with a general contractor to design a home that general contractor then sells to someone else. What is the architect's responsibility to the buyer of that property? And that's the education that I think is important. As a residential designer, we oftentimes get calls from homeowners who've purchased properties, but we have a contractual obligation to the developer and not to the owner, to the purchaser. And so then you're sort of in this gray area. So it's that clarification and education that I'm advocating for.
Ron, and let me try to clarify. First of all, I understand you well. When architects provide a service, not really by definition a consumer. In this case, is a developer. He's not literally a consumer. But the architect's agreement with this party should be the same legal meanings, the agreement with a homeowner, right? This person's intent of this product, not exactly architect's concern. Architect's concern is how do we serve this person, this project in follows established law and regulations and practice. So in other words, this is not third party. It is the architect and this person. If you cannot call him a consumer, maybe give him another name, client or something. So I agree with not touch upon on third party because what's the definition of third party? Anyone can be a third party. I think the importance is we want to educate public and architects about the importance of understanding the written contract requirement for signing them. I think that's the key.
I think we can capture it, and we want to educate the public about their rights and practitioners about their responsibilities. And understanding, I understand what you're saying, Ron, and we know that's what we're targeting it at. I think we can develop it with something along those lines, if that isn't too open-ended for the board.
Yeah, I think if we said rights and roles when contracts are signed, period, that covers it. And I think that's something that the REC will probably try and pursue the third party aspect too in the education materials. I think you just say, right, if you just change what you have to rights and roles when contracts are signed, period, that's to me is good enough.
I like rights and roles, I think apply accordingly by legal and industry standing. Yeah. So the Laura, I would think the goal is to eliminate the word third party.
Yes, so we could have it read, educate the public and practitioners regarding their rights and roles when contracts are signed.
Kara, do we need to put these words to actually modify it, or we allow staff non-substantive edits?
So I think you just discovered and worked out the actual language that you want in there. When you continue to go through this document, you will make a motion to adopt the strategic plan as modified. So the motion will include these specific changes and any other minor technical tweaks or substantive changes as you go through. And then if you've got, those a bit more nebulous issues, then, you would want to just make sure that you're specifying in the conversation what the change needs to be. In this scenario, you already know what the change is. So you can include it when you move to adopt the strat plan as modified.
Okay. And can we use the audio recording for staff to modify instead of restate for the recording of these modifications?
That's why I think in your discussion, you should be as specific as possible, because, there is no referring back. I mean, there's, going back and listening to the recording for purposes of, doing the meeting minutes and, potentially making these revisions. But the more, in this discussion, and hopefully everybody's taking notes, you are very specific about the changes you're making. Hopefully going back and reviewing the recording is unnecessary, because it is a significant part of time to try and go back and capture people's words and understand what they're saying. So if you make changes to this document during discussion, make the change and be very specific about what it is.
And Tara, is it fair to say that once the final draft is developed, council will review it for the terminologies and language, just to make sure that it's consistent and captures any sort of legal gray areas? Does that happen automatically?
No.
Got it.
This typically is when, legal would review it and just make sure that everything makes sense. I did not receive a copy of this to prepare for this meeting, so I'm seeing it for the first time myself. And your regular counsel, I don't know if he saw it. I didn't see any revisions from him. So depending upon the timing, if you guys need this to be, moved and put in place immediately, I don't know what to tell you. The review time has been a bit truncated here, because I'm just seeing this now. If you want legal to review it, they can, but I'm going to toss the ball over to Laura, because I'm sure she knows more about the process and who's seen it, who hasn't.
Yeah, I would say I don't think the last time we did it, we had a separate legal review. Michael participated in our strategic planning session, so we had his feedback at that point. So the plan was for the board to approve it. I've taken notes from the discussion today, but would do whatever the board would like. If they don't want to approve it today, we could postpone it to the February meeting and have additional review.
Board will approve.
I personally think that the framework that's been developed by staff is actually pretty good. And I think there are some nuances that can be improved upon based on the conversations that we're having. But I have no objection to, at least in my reading of the documents, to have an issue with moving forward.
I'd agree. Let's keep going. If we find some big glitches, then we can change position. Otherwise, the idea of approving today with the carve out that they'll include any verbal changes and we get staff this non-substantive or authority might work out for me.
So are there any additional comments in this area? Okay, we did well. So we can go to page 11, communications. This is probably our longest area. So we have 8 in here. So I'm just going to briefly run through these. First, resume regular communications with AIA, attending joint meetings once a year to give a consistent message to architects, candidates, and consumers. Second one is developing an outreach plan to educate licensees and candidates on information needed to acquire and maintain a license. Then develop communication regarding accessory dwelling units to clarify to the public how the current architect's practice law requirement is not affected by Senate Bill 9. This one is, I think, slightly awkward, but I think we understand what it is. Develop an outreach plan for academic and private institutions to continuously provide students and educators with relevant information. spotlight other ethnicities, minorities in the profession to promote the profession, create social media posts educating licensees on violations to increase compliance with the profession, survey higher educational institutions for data on their architect student populations to understand their plans for creating space for U.S. resident students, to mitigate a possible vacuum of professionals in the future, and then finally, provide information in multiple language to increase accessibility to licensees and candidates. And for this one, obviously we'll do the research, and I think a lot of this can be done fairly easily. Anything that would be a significant cost, we would, of course, bring back to the board for review. Any questions on these areas?
Yeah, on 3.5, I think you don't need the word other. Can't you just say spotlight ethnicities, minorities in the profession? I mean, that says
Sure.
everything. Yeah.
Okay. Mitra. You have your hand raised?
Yes. Sorry if I'm asking a crude question. Something that comes from my being new and ignorant about all these issues. Each one of them are a lot to digest about. When we are talking about these, like now on the goal 3 communications, and in the previous goals, I had immediately the question with each one of the items as to, okay, how, in what way? And, being a design educator, this is how I have taught my students throughout the years. As soon as you establish a goal, think about the items that you would think that you can achieve those goals. So with that said, I'm not saying that it has to go a lot deeper into each one of these items, but I'm saying that maybe it would be helpful, and this goes back to what I brought up informally with you, Laura and Tian, both of you, that with respect to the communication committee. So what are the scope of this committee with respect to the responsibilities that each one of the members are going to undertake for the duration that they're serving on that committee? So it would be helpful if we have 2-3 bullets under each one of these and clarified further and a little bit deeper about the scope of each one of these each one of these items, that the bullets can clarify them and become more helpful and give more creative mindset to the members of the committees that are going to be in charge of these goals. That's just
So the way the process generally works, I see Tara has her hand up, so I'll go to her. But the strategic plan sets the broad goals here, and then they're under each committee area, so that the board will develop an action plan on how to implement the strategic plan, which will go into greater detail on how we accomplish each objective. And then it's up to the committees too to determine how they want to go about implementing these objectives. But Tara, did you have something to add on this area? Does that make sense?
No,
sorry. Go ahead.
I think you've nailed the process. These are just big picture goals, and then the committees delve a bit further and figure out how to implement these. I had my hand up about trying to better clarify 3.5 a little bit, so I can hold on that comment until you finish Mitra's discussion.
So Mitra, it'll really be for communications, they will take these objectives or these goals and determine how they want to go and what they would like to do to accomplish them.
So the bottom line, you would like to leave it open to the creativity of each one of the committees to go deeper into this, or they might not be able to go to some of these items with a little bit more clarification through bullets might be helping the committee members. That's what I'm saying. So, but of course, maybe I'm asking too much. Sorry.
No. We want all inputs. But Yota, did you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to mention that these are just guidelines for each committee chair to be able to develop its scope of work to make sure that you are developing each one of these points to fruition. So that these are just guiding principles, I guess.
So, but it's excellent point, Mitra. Practice has been the strategic plan set at more goal and objective level, and then we stop there. And then our actual work by a committee or by the full board, picking from objective, and then to establish the measurement and deliverables. So that is generally we practice, but but adding some of the more specific directions, if you think the objective is not clear, it's not deliverable, it will be helpful. So look at that. This critical eye is good. Anyone has any other comment on this section?
Tara now has a comment. I think go back to 3.5.
Tara.
Yes. Okay. So from my history with this board, I know that diversity in architecture is very important to the members, and I'm thinking that 3.5 doesn't quite capture the board members' determination to increase diversity in the profession. And I'm wondering if we can, along with Ms. Kwan's changes to strike other, perhaps it would be clearer, a clearer statement of the board to change it to read spotlight ethnicities, minorities in the profession to increase diversity in the profession. I think, it's a minor change, and potentially you worked through this one very heavily, but I think that words matter. And, the diversity piece has been so important to you all that I think that, just adding a couple extra words to that really hammers it home that diversity in the profession is what you seek.
Yeah, and if I would add to that. I think we also want not to overlook gender inclusion as well as in the LGBT community. I think there's an opportunity to spotlight the broader community, and to limit ourselves just to ethnic minorities, I think would be a disservice.
Good point. So what we're trying to do is say a very all-encompassing line here. But let's keep in mind that this is the communications committee. So it is to talk about and promote the profession in terms of communication. So, while I understand what you're saying, Tara, about the, just being more inclusive, I wonder if that is too much of an overreaching goal for communications. So
not really, Sylvia. I thought this sentence missing a part. In other words, why you want spotlight or showcase ethnic minorities and other genders and sexualities, and for the purpose of diversity and inclusion. I think it's a make that argument complete.
This is Laura. So as I recall from the discussion at the strategic planning meeting, this was Ron's suggestion. And it came from a comment that as he was growing up and getting into profession, he didn't see a lot of people similar to himself. And if we could spotlight people in the profession that are non-traditional, it would give younger people the idea that they too could become an architect. So it was sort of, I think, not a large in scope proposal, but we could certainly, it could encompass the greater diversity goal of the board. Ron, did I capture that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
But would you be open to add, like you were saying earlier, about there's also gender, right?
Yeah.
And all that stuff. So I don't know how unless you list it all, I don't know how you get everybody, unless you, again, compress it into, the DEI thing.
Yeah, and I think diverse communities, I think, is an all-encompassing narrative or description, and I think that would do it. But I think that we should challenge ourselves to make sure that our efforts include the broader community. The broader, what I call just our diversity as a nation is fantastic, and I'm just not quite sure that we pay homage to those diversities in the right way all the time.
So let's come back. Someone tried on English others, so become more inclusive. 3.5 itself.
This is Tara. I'm also uncertain about what spotlight means. Are you saying you're going to have articles on the website, or are you going to create outreach to different communities to promote diversity in the profession, or are you doing outreach at colleges and universities to increase diversity? So spotlight, I believe, needs a bit more clarification as well.
Yeah, and I think that the scope can be fairly limited. I think that you can start with just the newsletter and say once a quarter, if the newsletter is quarterly, then we would basically work with staff and those who are responsible for putting these together to identify potential candidates. And there are also other partners. I mean, AIA has a diversity committee. We know that there's NOAA out there to help us identify potential candidates. So I think there's a lot of resources that are available to us. But I think that you're right, Tara, is that it's a pretty broad narrative. And so trying to make sure that we're not overextending ourselves, I think, is also important.
How about the publicize or highlight in California Architects Board publications on this issue?
I would also recommend that we just maybe even send out like a survey to the architect community to nominate themselves of wanting to be featured in the community or in our communication pieces about the work that they do, to generate a pool of people that we'd like to select from. And it could be not necessarily, it could be in the newsletter, but it could also be just like a social media post with them tagged on it. It's very like simple. Like it doesn't have to be like a long, in-depth like overview of who they are. It could be like a short clip that is just their photo and about them and who they are and what they do. And then I honestly think it could be done once a month. That's it.
Let me try the wording, and I try Laura. Okay, publicize in apps applications of architects from diverse background to promote diversity and inclusion.
Say that one more time.
Publicize in apps publications about architects from diverse backgrounds to promote diversity and inclusion.
Did you say publicize something publications?
So I heard it as publicize architects from diverse backgrounds to promote diversity and inclusion. And maybe we don't need diversity in there twice, so perhaps it's publicize architects from diverse backgrounds to promote inclusion.
In California Architects Board's publications. So that's inclusive of all the social medias, newsletters, everything. That's all publication.
We could include that, and that also could be up to the implementation at the communications committee to determine how they're going to do it. But
I agree. That's why I thought spotlight was fine. But I think publicize, we're going to use that word, is fine. But I would not limit it to our publications, because as Ron said, we might just do it by getting other organizations involved, supporting them, doing different things. So.
Okay, that's a good point.
So I think the way you described it, Laura, sounds good. Maybe you can repeat that one more time.
So publicize architects from diverse backgrounds to promote inclusion.
You can say support the diversity and inclusion in the profession. I don't think it's bad. Yeah. Okay, I like that.
Okay. I support that too.
I like it too. This is Nilsa.
Okay. Tom, very good. Albany, are you okay with that? Albany, are you okay with the wording? I think
Ebony was having a little bit of a challenge with her internet connection, so she
okay.
And I think she had a good idea on how we can implement this that we can take to communications.
Yeah.
Okay.
So notes on item 3.3 is raised by you. You could use some of words that are more accurate in architecture. If you don't mind, I don't think we need the full committee to just work on a couple of phrases about in architecture terms.
Sorry, Tiana, I didn't quite understand what you're asking Niels about 3.3.
I asked Niels 3.3 was raised by Niels, and the current as written by some word edits and to be more architecturally accurate.
We definitely need to inform the broader architect community about Senate Bill 9 and how it will affect the profession or not affect the profession. From my understanding, from reading the bill, it does not require a licensed architect to create the dwelling. So we just need to get legal clarification on what the bill really, how it affects the architect board and our licensees.
So is that perhaps develop communication regarding the requirements of SB 9 and its impact on the profession?
Exactly, and maybe we can get at a future agenda a legal interpretation from our attorney to let us know how it affects our department or the department.
Laura, do you remember what you said? It's perfect. Just use your
yeah. Develop communication regarding the requirements of SB 9 and its impact on the profession.
Yes, nail it. Yes.
Perfect.
We'll revise the wording there, and then I'll carry forward Niels' request for follow-up on this from legal.
From legal, and also Niels, are most likely this is one of the immediate agenda item for communication.
I'm sorry, what was that, Tia? I didn't hear you. Tian, can you repeat what your statement, please?
In addition to Laura, we'll start working with our legal staff. This item will be most likely placed on the agenda for the communications committee.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, this is Brett. I have a question. May I? For us non-architects, could you remind us what SB 9 is?
ADU.
Laura, do you want to take that, or do you want me to? My vague interpretation of that.
Oh, SB 9 is the new statewide law that complements the ADUs. Thank you. That's what I thought.
Okay.
It's
Laura,
not the
I'm
ADU
sorry,
law,
I jumped
but
in for.
it's an addition to the ADU law that allows more units. Thank you.
Laura, I jump in for a housekeeping item. Members, I intend to continue this until we finish the all open agenda, public agendas, which most likely will be done by 12:30 or 12:40, I hope. And then we take a break, and then we meet at 1 o'clock as Chief of Human Resource wants to speak to us about the Executive Office's review. Is every member's okay? We continue about half more hour on this before we take a break.
Yes.
Okay.
Fine.
And we will take half-hour break and let's try to finish this by 12:30. Laura, continue.
Okay, so are there any other comments on the communications goals? We've made changes to 3.3 and 3.5. Captured that. Okay, so if we can move on to page 12. Well, this one's large too, organizational relationships and effectiveness. To just briefly run through these, we're going to synchronize the committee meetings to get more collaboration. We'll evaluate the need for certain committees and increase the efficiency of the board. This sort of gets to Tian's comments on the prior agenda item. Streamline and coordinate the work of the board and LATC to function more as one organization to effectively use resources. Implement business modernization. Engage in debate regarding the relationship of interior design to the practice of architecture to increase education and consumer protection. Digitize records and document files for improved efficiency. Create a calendar of associated meetings and events so we can have a board presence. Collaborate with allied boards and boards outside of California. And invite affinity groups to board meetings to promote awareness of each other's activities and foster collaboration. And increase our presence with NCARB to make sure NCARB's voice matches California's constituency. Just kind of briefly ran through the highlights there. Are there any questions on these?
You recall I brought in this discussion about the committee. Maybe that's where this fit for this discussion, committee format and the committee consistency of operation.
Yeah, so we can have, if any members have any comments on that particular item, or we can refer this to the full board when we implement or to the executive committee.
I have a question with regards to like this this goal and the communication goal. I see some overlaps. Is it okay if the committees that are working on each one of these goals, they have some sort of overlap activity? Is that possible?
No, we will, with your help and other committee member or chair's help, we'll sort through. We will assign these some categories of like goal 4. We can take some of these goals into communication committee, so there's no redundancy. Okay.
Yeah, like I'm saying, like the relationship with other collaterals, architectural collaterals, like in the case of NCARB, is something that communication can do as well.
So most of, for example, the item here, since we don't have a committee on organizational relationships, it's likely these goals and objectives will be assigned to committee.
Yeah, these generally get assigned either to the executive committee or just that staff can implement. So a few of these things we can just do, I think, without further direction, like looking at digitizing records, creating the calendar of meetings, inviting collaterals to the board meetings, and scheduling the committee meetings.
Looks good. Members, can we move forward to the next chapter?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, so any other comments on this area?
We're done. We just did a move to the next one.
All right, so that was the last area. So then if there aren't any other comments, I think we need public comment, and then we would take a motion on the plan as revised in discussion here.
We need to make a motion first.
This is Nelsa Serrano. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the strategic plan for 2021-22.
With, need to continue that the next part. Tara, can you help us the language with edits or whatever is made during this discussion?
Sorry, I think we need a motion to adopt the 2022 through 2024 strategic plan as amended.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
So moved.
I second.
You also moved, Albany second. Good. And before we take the vote, let's go for public comments period.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. You also have the option to raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, we have a Glenn S.A. Gall that would like to make a comment. So Glenn, just a reminder, you'll have a 2-minute time limit. I'll give you a 30-second warning. And Glenn, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go, you're unmuted.
Good morning or good afternoon, board. Oh, good afternoon, board. This is Glenn, and I would like to make a slight comment on the item that referenced SB 9. SB 9 is only one of a number of bills that have since been codified into law. That said, it's already directly addressed by the Practice Act, and it would be nice if both that law and other subsequent laws to that issue were addressed relative to the Practice Act and not so specific to SB 9. Thanks for allowing me to comment.
This is Nilsa Serrano.
Good comment.
This is Nilsa Serrano. Thank you so much for that suggestion. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and I see no further requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please, moderator. Close the public comment.
It's closed.
Okay. We will have a quick update. We'll lead by Laura on the discussions of NCOB initiative in the committee meetings.
First, we need to take the roll call.
On this?
Oh, no, we have to roll call and on that motion. All right.
Are you ready for the roll call? All right. Mr. Fang?
Yes.
Ms. Serrano?
Yes.
Mr. Perriman, aye. Mr. Gladstone?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Kanani?
Yes.
Ms. Kwan?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Ward? Sunny? Okay, we'll just mark him as no vote.
Okay.
Roll call completed.
Okay, motion passes with one absentee. We move to next agenda now. It's a quick discussion about NCOB's activities and the committees. Laura, do you want to give a quick overview, or then we can jump in?
Sure. I actually don't have a whole lot, but this is just a standing item for members to talk about their committee meetings. I don't really have much new for mine, but I know that Tian and Sylvia and Nielsa participated in recent meetings. If they would like, I think Sylvia's got an update.
Yeah, I'll start, and then hopefully Tian and Nielsa can jump in. So we had the committee summit in Washington, D.C. last week. And it was a really interesting approach to the committees. There's many committees on NCARB, and they invited a series of committees to meet with each other. So I sit as the board liaison to the examinations committee, for example, and we met with the think group and the rethink group. Oh, hello?
Think and rethink, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Think and rethink are think is unlicensed and rethink are newly licensed. Okay, so we met with them. The second group we met with was a group called the Responsible Charge Committee. And that talks about very specific process by which an architect must understand what their responsibilities are before they put the stamp on the drawings. The next group we met with was the Futures Task Force. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to understand, or not understand, but project and plan what might be going on in the profession 25, 50 years from now. So that's quite an interesting group. Then we met with the Diversity Collaborative. And that's when Nilza was there, and she can describe that a little more. And then finally, we met with the Licensing Advisory Forum and the examinations. The Licensing Advisory Forum is really interesting. They have a whole group of outside advisors, the American Indian Architects Association, AIA, AIAS, ACSA, Association of Licensed Architects, MBE Executives, NAB, NOMA, and SARA, which is the licensed architects that don't join the AIA, for example. And so with all those groups, it was a really fascinating 2 days of discussion with them. And I actually took away a few things that I thought were sort of like, this is what I see as the concern, like when you look at the whole landscape. Number one is people are really worried about exam fees when they take it multiple times. It gets expensive for these young practitioners. Another idea was a one-day test like we used to do in the old days, where everybody took the test on the same day, because it forces people to take the exam seriously on a particular time so they can prep. Right now, it's on a rolling clock, so people can always put it off. The way everybody described it was life gets in the way. And so it's something to think about. The other really interesting point that was brought up is about specializations. People are thinking that maybe, when you get out of school and you are ready to take the exam, that you take a general exam. And so you're like an architect, light. And then afterwards, if you're interested in educational facilities, healthcare, maybe the environment, you take specialized tests and you get an extra certification, kind of like the medical field. So, and then the last thing is late career licensing. What do you do with people that have been practicing for 30 years and they never got their license? How do they get licensed? So those are like 4 of the main takeaways that I got from these 2 days. And why don't you go ahead and give your perspective, Nilza?
Thank you. The diversity committee was created as a task force, so it was a temporary committee. Since our evaluation over the last 2, almost 3 years of its formation, we have now come to the conclusion that the diversity committee needs to become a permanent committee of the organization. So therefore, changing the bylaws. I think we have some resistance with some of the board members who currently like things as they are. However, the new leadership is definitely pushing to ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is part of the culture at NCARB. So we met with every committee that was there in the summit to explain why DEI was important and why it would benefit NCARB as a whole. Our argument is that if we are not relevant to today's time, NCARB will not have the following from the younger architects who are more in tune with the DEI efforts. So I think from my estimate is that I think that this will pass and become a permanent committee at NCARB. So that's what I have to report.
I agree. And then Tian, you also participated.
So I had my own board agenda on Thursday, so I had to change, become virtually attending, not in person like Sylvia and Nilza. As both of them said, we're rotating with each other committee from your own committee. I represent Futures Collaborative, which our mission is envision how the licensure and the reciprocity will be done 20 years, 50 years from today. A quick summary is, what about take one approach only? Right now we call the 3 E's, right? Education, experience, examination. And what about we only do education? And there are models around the world education covers everything and coming out to become a licensed doctor. Don't even have a license. What about education? What about the experience only and examination only? So I express my personal view on these fronts, and some of this might reflect California's view, which I feel experience should be always exist, always allow people to have that path. So I did not say education only path is not viable, but that's my concern that in our current practice, they do allow for people who have no formal degrees from NAV or non-NAV license. In terms of examination, I made a point. At the currently, examination may create barriers to these licensed or future license in the future candidates, but the examination seems to provide that platform for reciprocities between different jurisdictions, and also examination actually serve as an opportunity people who have no formal education but can pass the examination. So, but nothing. This committee is just a brainstorming. You just express your view. That's how I express my view on that 3 discussion, which was the focus of the conversation. So that's my report. Anything from Laura and Sylvia and Nilza before we move on to this item, or any questions, inquiries from the board on this subject?
Right. Any questions for us? Because I took a lot of notes, but I didn't want to take too much time here. But it was really, really interesting meeting with other committees, because then you see each committee has a charge that's given to us by the board, and each committee has to resolve and come up with an answer or a result to their charge. And so when you share it amongst the other committees, you get a much broader understanding of what the whole group is doing. And it was one of the best meetings I'd ever attended with NCARB because of good communications.
I don't know if Brianna's still here. The tool of a hybrid meeting was really effective. I feel no barrier. Actually, I have direct conversation to the people who are physically in the room. So we can look into that technology. Very reliable, very free, very good.
Yeah, the technology was really amazing. The other thing too is some of you may have heard of a spin-off of NCARB. It's actually a for-profit entity of NCARB, and it's called, what's it called again? Lineup. Thank you. And it's been, actually has quite a number of outside clients now, or customers that buy it. But what it does is it organizes exactly what we did this time. It organizes a lot of all the volunteers within that organization, and places them in the places where they need to be, whether it's on committees or whatever else. But it's a really, really good software, and they've launched it, and it's gonna start making money at some point. It's a startup for NCARB. It's really cool. I don't know, Laura, if you're familiar with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting service they provide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we are about to moving on, unless I see another hand. All right, I don't see a hand.
Nope, I think we need to open for public comment.
Open for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item J, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please moderate.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, we are moving to item K, LATC report. We will ask Trish Rodriguez to present present this item. Trish, you have 2 minutes.
Trish was not able to join today, but Stacy Townsend from LATC is going to present this item, I believe.
Okay, Stacy, so I took my comments back. You have now unlimited.
Okay. So the board recently updated their statutes to allow a person responding to a citation to request an administrative hearing at the conference if the citation is upheld or modified, and to allow the executive officer to appoint a designee to hold an informal conference if there is a conflict of interest. In order to align with the board, LATC staff has amended CCR section 2630.2 to include similar language. The board reviewed and approved proposed language to this section, at its December 11th, 2020 meeting. However, during the Legal Affairs Division review of the submitted regulatory package, some concerns were raised and revisions were recommended. The revisions were deemed to be substantial, and therefore they've been attached to the meeting packet, and they are the revised CCR sections 2630 and 2630.2 for the board to approve and adopt. And then we've also listed the amendments on the cover sheet for your reference.
To vote on this. Hi, Laura.
We will need a motion on this, and I think I have it. I can read it out if we don't have any questions. And our regulation counsel is here as well if members have any questions, either for Stacy or for Karen Halbo. But if there aren't any questions, I can read the motion.
Go ahead and read the motion.
The motion is to approve and adopt the proposed regulatory text as modified, direct the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, authorize the executive officer to make any technical or non-substantive changes to the rulemaking package, notice the proposed text for a 45-day comment period, and if no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, adopt the proposed regulatory text as modified and complete the rulemaking process.
I should mention, Laura, if I could, that I sat in the latest meeting of the Landscape Architecture Technical Committee's last session. They have invested tons of time and effort. Their advisory council was heavily engaged, and so I completely support the recommendations and and advocate for the approval of this document.
I like to move the motion.
Second.
A question, was this, did the Architects Board itself take similar action in response to the change that promoted this? And if so, does that mean our regulations are suspect?
I think we already have this authority in our statute. I'll have to double check though, but I think that's where it came from, is that we made these changes and then LHC needs to make additional changes. It was an issue that came up in our, I think, as part of our sunset review a few years ago.
Okay. If no further comments, let's open to public comment before we take a roll call on this.
All right. The Q&A panel is now available. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please.
Okay, it's closed.
Laura, could you quickly agenda item L, future dates?
We need a roll call on that item.
Oh, roll call. All right, keep going.
You have to vote. So on item K, Mr. Fang, excuse me.
Aye.
Ms. Serrano.
Aye.
Mr. Pearman, aye. Mr. Gladstone.
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Kanani, Ms. Kanani.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Kwan,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Ward. Mr. Ward. Sonny? Okay, we'll listen as not voting. It passes.
Okay, motion passes. Item number L, Laura.
Okay, our last item in open session is just a review of future board meeting dates. They're listed in the packet. We have location listed as to be determined, as we've already discussed. We'll see if the remote or the virtual option is extended, but at this point we'd plan for the Bay Area for the February 25th meeting. Usually we meet early in June. We moved it to May 20th, so the board can act on items before NCARB's annual meeting, which is the first weekend in June this year, rather than the third weekend, and then September 9th and December 9th. Any questions or comments?
Can you just repeat that, the May meeting again?
Sure, May 20th.
20th, thank you. And
at this point, I'll miss the February 25th. Looks like I have another hearing that day.
If necessary, we can change the meeting, right? This
is just informational, so we can revise as needed.
Okay, good. We're not voting on any fixed dates.
Right.
Okay. So I would suggest that we will, if we have questions about the meeting time and location, we will rediscuss next board meeting. And with that said, I think today's board meeting open agendas, public agendas are complete as of now. And after the break, we will have closed the session. And after we finish the closed session, we will come back to adjourn the meeting, which is in public. But I want to let the public know there will be no new business to be discussed. Simply adjourn the meeting when we return from closed session. Sarah, is everything okay in this organization? I think she has no objection. So when we meet at 1 o'clock, we will start listening to Nicole Lay about guidance about the executive office's performance review. And then we will, after that, have 2 cases we need working on, make a decision upon. Okay?
Tian, since it's 12:35 now, should we make it 1:05 that we come back?
It might be hard, if you don't mind, because we arranged Nicole to speak to us at the 1.
Okay.
You sure it's okay? Otherwise, I have to call her.
No. I think if everybody else is okay with that, I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll see you at 1 o'clock. Laura, do we need to log on to another link, or we can stay here?
You can stay in the same link. They'll send you into a private room, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, so everyone just stay logged in, and just you can mute your mic and turn off your camera for your break.